Hello, this is MDS 500, and I just wanted to do a guide on how to do the new Warlord's Ruin dungeon solo flawlessly on a Celestial Nighthawk Hunter. Um, I find this dungeon very enjoyable to play, and if you haven't done it yet, obviously this guide is going to be a big spoiler for you, but I do recommend pausing this and going through and completing a blind run through of the dungeon, preferably even solo, even if it's not flawless, of course, because it's just a very fun experience. The game throws a bunch of tricks and at you, and it's just the boss damages are just very fun compared to some of the previous encounters, especially the previous dungeon that we've had with Ghost of the Deep was a very long slog. This one's a much more enjoyable pace. So for Hunter, you're going to be almost primarily just stuck on um, some type of damage scenario, and this is why we're picking Celestial Nighthawk here. In comparison to something like Assassin's Cowl, because Cowl you'd be too dependent on, like, say, Dragon's Breath for damage, and it would just go too slowly. Getting that extra damage super in there is really beneficial. So, on to the first encounter. You really want to start off by getting all of your buffs up as fast as possible so you can have a little bit more survivability. This is, Radiant and Restoration. Trying to get the headshot on the enemies with Sunshot to take advantage of the artifact perk where you get headshots, ignite things, and Sunshot already comes with incandescent, so you can really start getting some massive explosions, killing ads in large groups. And that really is the tone for why we're doing Sunshot here instead of Dragon's Breath, in that we're generating heavy at a massively increased rate compared to using like a legendary primary, um, and that's how we're going to get away with doing apex dumping. Um, Ideally, you would have two kinetic surges on as well, but we're going to go into this with just three solar out of pure laziness, and getting those swaps. So I messed up my damage phase here a little bit, and I did dodge first to get Slice to activate onto the fusion rifle, and that prevents me from getting the weekend to take place on these later shots for the Apex. But overall, we got half, almost just about half on this, and switching to a scavenger loadout with the intention of picking up all the ammo bricks that we've put up from before. These Ravagers are a great source of super if you just start pelting them away with damage, especially Scatter Signal. And I recommend doing that between the phases because they are what gonna kill you while you're trying to get the pylon dunked. They just simply have too much health to burn quickly with Sunshot, and so you're not going to keep your restoration up. Here you can see that I picked up the Fire Sprite, and that is going to mean that the source of my restoration is from this Fire Sprite. So any additional Fire Sprite I pick up will revert it to 3. You can see right there it went to 3, and that's why I'm throwing the grenade at the ground to get it to go back to 6. This is a common theme with, unfortunately, a bug. You're going to want to keep track of what your actual source of restoration was at all time, and that will kind of dictate how aggressive you play into some scenarios, knowing that, hey, my initial source of restoration might have been a long time ago, but I was able to keep it up for so long, and so I'm just going to start picking up a bunch of fire sprites on the ground, knowing that it's going to go to 6 instead of 3. And that means I can keep, having more time to kill ads, and the fire sprites ultimately become a huge benefit because they can help contribute towards your armor charges, and they also give you a bunch of super ammo and ability ammo, so that you can potentially have just a nade sitting on standby while you already have a restoration. Ultimately, this ends up being a 3-phase, primarily because I didn't get pylons on the second one and a bad rotation on the first one. This can be 2-phased with the Nighthawk, even on triple solar surge instead of kinetic. The double kinetic does make a difference, but as long as you don't miss your shots like I do right here, then you'll have a much more consistent time. DPS is no good if you miss your shots. Going into the first traversing section, you can try to get some ammo with your Eager Edge from the previous encounter. And what you really want to do is make sure you know how to count. So I ended up messing up this section pretty badly, as I thought I read 4, but it was actually 3. You do want to use some type of weapon that has a scope on it. Here I got the Coronarch or whatever it's called. I had a Graviton in my inventory. It's just so you can actually see more clearly which one it's rotating through the bars. And as you can see, the bars have absolutely disgusting hitboxes. So you can be shooting right at something, and it won't activate. So having that scope on, knowing that you actually have it spinning, is the best way. If you've never seen this before, getting the scope or getting the things to turn, you just shoot them one time to have them turn counterclockwise. You shoot them a second time to have them stop moving, and then you shoot them a third time to have them going clockwise. Shoot them a fourth time to have them stop moving. Rinse, repeat. In this case, we want to have, since I saw 3 on the ground on the first cell, that first cell I spawned in, that means you want to have that many number going clockwise, and so in this case it was 3. And then the other cell that's further on, which is what I shot at the ground, that also had 3 because there's 6 of them, so it split 3-3. But say the first one had 5, then you want 5 clockwise, and the second one says 1, that means you want 1 counterclockwise. This section, or the transitions in this dungeon in general, you actually want to go fast through for 2 reasons. The primary reason being you really want to get used to going quickly through this area, as it can be a huge time sink, and when you're doing these solo attempts, they're not going to be done on the first try. And so you don't want to waste time on sections that really don't teach you very much. This is just a memorization jumping puzzle, so go through it quickly. If you go through fast enough, the ads don't spawn, which of course is beneficial because that's one less way for you to die. The ads aren't very dangerous here. With Sunshot, you can basically one-shot their crit spot, and they'll die instantly. But it's worth mentioning because you can still be frozen by them, and they can still push into a pit while you're frozen, or just have some Bungie architect come kill you because you were frozen while you were next to a wall, and that just did all your health damage. Similarly, on the bridge section next up, you just want to go fast. Just go right over everything. If you look towards the sky when you're at your edge, you're not going to hit anything. I'll take the next minute to just describe kind of the build here. You want 100 resilience at all times in general. There's just no reason not to run it. I also have 100 discipline. That's not necessarily required. The amount of difference between, say, 70 discipline and 100 discipline is just 1 fire sprite pickup. So take that with what you want. You really just want to max out your resilience. Going up next, I have a high mobility. Again, not entirely required. I'm running acrobatics dodge here. That's probably the one thing I'd recommend a lot of people to change if they're trying to copy this. You could switch this to marksman, and you have better rotations for your damage and more consistent damage because you get that extra apex shot off during the weekend effect, I should say. Whereas I use acrobats mainly to maneuver myself. It's the farthest distance dodge in a sense, and it can be good for aerial scenarios where you're trying to go down quickly. And then I also use it as a source of radiance. But this season, if you just get a large amount of multi-kills, you'll become radiant. So that's a mute point in a sense. Also, the knives give you radiant and weaken things. So starting on to the second boss, you really want to think about what kills you here, right? And as long as you have restoration, the eyes can kill you, because they can all shoot you at once, and the Minotaurs can kill you because they just sometimes decide to spam a million shots at you. So I recommend between damage phases, every time they spawn, it's just the 2 of them, go finish them off. Just get them out of the way. Once they're dead, the boss will just push you around. He barely does any damage. The ads are just sources of restoration and radiant. They don't do damage. And the big guys that spawn, you have to kill them anyways to get the objective to continue. So yeah, just take the Minotaurs out of the equation. You don't have to worry about them. And then, in general, what you want to be doing is taking advantage of Sunshot's heavy generation, and try to kill all of the ads around the torches, so that when damage phase occurs, you can just pick up ammo on the way. That's part of the reason why Dragon's Breath is we're not using Dragon's Breath here, and Apex is so successful, is that we're just constantly picking up heavy off the ground mid-torch. So look around, spawn some heavy, leave the heavy in the middle of the map for when damage phase is going on, and pick up the heavy on the edge of the map. between damage phases so that you can go into the next one full ammo and leave the heavy on the ground in the middle. If you ever get low on restoration, you don't really have a good source, remember that Radiant can be a source of restoration, in a sense that defeating or Radiant this season will proc Scorch, and then Scorch will proc a Fire Sprite generation, and a Fire Sprite generation is Mercy restoration. So just getting Radiant at all, you don't even need an ability. If you just get a large amount of multi-kills and you become Radiant, one of those things that you had killed in that massive multi-kill likely dropped a Fire Sprite, and that's your source. So keep that in mind. The other thing that you'll see is I'm only getting 2 here, and I'm sticking to the left side of the map. And while it is possible to get 3, it's much more difficult to get 4. And there's no real value in getting 3 because you'll just have to get another cycle, if you want to call it that, from the biting colds. So just get 2, play it safe. I'm on the left side here because although the ogre can push you around quite a bit, and there is that scary, death plane behind you, as long as you're not jumping in the air, or if you are jumping in the air, you're jumping to a location that you're either going to grapple to, or if he hits you, you won't go flying up off the map. You should be just fine. On the right side, I find that it's far more scary because either the Scorn can push you up in the air, and then the ogre will send you off, kind of like a wombo combo, or that if you just jump at all near that balcony, he'll push you off the map. He's a much better line of sight on the right side than on the left side, and so I find the left side to be a little bit more safe. Going into damage phase, the key thing here is, yeah, we're going to continue our swap just like the first encounter, but we're going to keep an eye on where the heavy is, and we're going to run to it between torches. The torches themselves actually have quite a lot of time per torch, and so you can take advantage of that by dumping as many as you want, but you can also take advantage of that by instead letting Apex reload itself and focusing on staying alive via sunshot kills. So here you can see I'm just letting Apex get reloaded in the background while I clean up all the ads around me. You do not want to be firing Apex or even Dragon's Breath in that scenario while an ad is anywhere in front of you. It is a for sure way to die a really dumb death. So clean them up with sunshot, let your rocket reload in the background. In between torches, go find some heavy. I left some up on that platform on purpose. This is a little bit unfortunate because the boss will get a little too close here, and similar with Dragon's Breath, it can nuke you, so you want to be very safe. It's much better to go from a 2-phase to a 3-phase, or from a 3-phase to a 4-phase, and not die if it means having to withhold 1 shot. So I'm saving the shots here until it gets to a better spot where I can get behind the pillar to block the blast damage. Overall, it's a lot safer. Although I do leave 3 in the mag, which would have been half in 1 phase. So the other thing I really messed up there is I forgot to switch my loadout. If you are going to run multiple loadouts, especially if you're going to run double kinetic surges, you can see if you're firing some 18 shots of a rocket launcher, you do want to switch to triple solar. That is going to be technically more damage than your select field would ever even dream of doing. So that's why you want to have the solars on. Then it is important to actually remember to switch your loadouts. I think I did half of that encounter on the wrong one. So, yep. In between phrases, this is mostly a rinse repeat. Kill the Minotaurs, kill the eyes. The eyes themselves are a good source of restoration and radiant if you ever need to top off your buff. They are always in the same spots, and they don't move. They only take 2 shot shots to die, so very consistent. If you ever have the Scorn Knights get onto a high ground when you intended them to be on a low ground like this, this is definitely a very scary situation in a sense that this is how you have the pylons not spawn. The Scorn will throw, I think it's like this grenade object on the ground, and it kind of like bounces slightly before it decides where to land and pop up the pylon. And if that lands in some nook or cranny, or just is still in the air when its timer goes out, I think that's what causes the pylons to not spawn, even though they do the animation that makes it look like it would. Alternatively, if you flinch them during that spawning animation and the grenade didn't come out of their hand, that's also how you prevent the pylon from spawning. If that happens, you can either just shrug and say whatever, I'll get another, another one in a different phase or different cycle, or you can quickly, if you have enough time, you can run up to middle, and again, the dude in middle has likely already dropped his near the middle, and so even without killing him, you can just go stand in the pylon that he dropped in middle. Alternatively, if you're real fast, you can kill him and pick both up. Don't stress about getting the pylons over surviving biting cold. When it looks sketchy, like you might not get it, just go get rid of your stacks. You have more than enough time to get 2 from the same dude. So just go get 1 and cleanse your stacks, or get half of 1 and cleanse your stacks, and come back and get both. Finish both of them. It's about a stack every second. So if you're looking at your wish buff and you have 2 biting cold, for example, and imminent wish only has 6 seconds left on it, then there's no way you can die from the biting cold. So you can just freely walk around, pick up ammo, go to a torch somewhere down low, and kill the ads down there so that you can get some heavy and the right spots during damage phase. And again, prior to damage, you want to try to get all your buffs up. You want to try to get even potentially a fire spray on the ground if you know that your source was from a grenade. So these are just constantly things that you need to keep in the back of your mind. What gave me restoration, right? Do I have maxed armor charges? Do I need maxed armor charges going into this? Can I spawn a bunch? Am I on the right loadout? I know this time halfway through the air. And yeah. What is Apex hitting there? 280? I feel like it could be slightly higher if, what is it missing? I don't think Slice applied correctly there, because I think you can get it to 300. Yeah. And again, you want to decide, do I load my Apex shots with Gold Gun, or do I load it with Sunshot and try to get some ad kills in the background? If you can always safely shoot another rocket, even though it might look like damage phase is about to end, there's 0 seconds left on the timer. I think it's generally pretty forgiving in a sense that you can actually shoot that shot off and it will still land. Like the 0 second is actually like a full additional second after that. And so, yep. Going into a third phase here, unfortunate. This second phase the second damage phase just wasn't nearly as good as the first one, even though I forgot to switch my loadout correctly. I just didn't get as much heavy this time around. So going into a third, rinse repeat. You'll notice that I do actually end up making the mistake of not killing the Minotaurs first. I was a little bit frustrated that the damage wasn't as high here, and I just started to go around the map trying to find heavy. And that puts me in a bit of a pickle because I realized that the Minotaurs are up. Both of them are full health, and I don't think that they're near any acolytes. So even if I get the headshot on an acolyte to ignite them, then they're going to just live through that because they're not near it. Once you get out of a rhythm, that's when you're most vulnerable in a sense. Once you start doing something new. So here you can see that I'm actually going out of my way to kill the Minotaurs now, and I lose my restoration buff and accidentally start an encounter. So here's the scenario where I have no abilities coming up. I have no way to get an ability quickly, and if it weren't for the fact that I had made that enemy radiant from my knives, he wouldn't have spawned this fire sprite. It would have been a little bit more sticky of a situation if that Minotaur had been shooting. Thankfully things worked out a little bit better. So kind of what I mean in general of stay in your rhythm, rinse repeat, and things will go pretty well. Don't try to reinvent the wheel every single time you do a phase or a cycle. Just kind of get very good practice at the order at which you do it, and how you do it. So going into the final phase, ammo at this point doesn't matter, so no need to kill all the ads unless you want to keep your radiant and restoration up. And oh yeah, I forgot that the ogre. Sometimes the ogre will just charge you. Not much you can do except patiently hide behind a wall so he doesn't knock you off the map. That's when he'll do the slam attack, and it's particularly lethal because you're near the edge. This can happen on the right or left side. He'll come up all the way to the stairs, and being on that balcony, it'll just push you right off the map, and it's very frustrating. So no need to kill all the ads as they spawn, and going to get the final 2 bombs after this, or not bombs, but the torches or whatever they're called. The rest of this dungeon, I'd say, is very exciting, in a sense that the final boss is very well designed, and going from damage phase to damage phase. I really do enjoy how they planned this out, and compared to, say, like Ghost of Deep, where you have an extremely long setup phase going to an extremely long damage phase, where ads are just everywhere. And it's very frustrating to try to get good damage. I really like how Bungie designed this dungeon, and I hope we see that carried through to the final shape. I know that this year has been particularly difficult for like them designing things, as far as seasonal activities being quite boring. But the lore has been pretty on top of it, especially with this dungeon as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they come out with. This is very promising. And oh, hey, look at that! I got a pretty good battle scar. Sorry about this. I already have a good roll of that. I think I have the exact same thing, but with handling masterwork, so I'll probably use that instead. Being shoot to loot, but gotta go double check what I have in dim after this, and see if what I have is better than that, because that's pretty decent. If you never played this dungeon before, the chest that is correct to open is the one that's not glowing. It's the same with the previous chests. Plural. There's a bunch of them littered throughout the first traversal section, except I didn't bother going to any of them because they're kind of all out of the way, and they're all close range too, and so it is difficult to tell which one is the correct one, as you have to be so close to them that they all look like they're not glowing, and very similar to the previous traversal section. We're gonna try to skip killing these ads as much as possible. Taking Blight is kind of an exception, because you really don't want the wizards shooting you from behind too much. The Taken wizards, similar to the final encounter, are going to be the most dangerous aspect of it. I know that a lot of people would say that the final boss is quite dangerous, but and I do agree that it does a lot of damage, but it's very preventable damage. If you hide behind anything that's line of sight, very similar to the ogre, the boss is very basic, in that it will just shoot directly at you, and if that means that it shoots at a wall, it shoots at a wall. Even if it shoots at a small twig, the twig will just block the damage. For this Taken Blight, stick to the outside, don't go to the middle. I know the middle might look safer, but overall, those debris flying, one of them just hitting you at the wrong angle will send you flying, and if you don't have eager edge ammo, or you're not prepared for it, it's a very easy wipe, especially after such a long second boss. Yeah, it's very frustrating. So, my first video I did this, I switched to Grafalcons on this ad clear section. Not entirely sure why. I think just out of safety. I did end up trying this on all of the different subclasses, and I found Solar to be the most consistent. Void, doing traditional Void, where I'm sitting there with Clown, Clown card? No, that's not right. Royal Entry with Clown Cartridge. Or doing Leviathan's Breath. I just couldn't get the same overall damage and overall consistency, because it just took so long. It was very, very slow in comparison to doing Apex or Dragon's Breath, or including Assassin's Cowl and Arc. It's just, yeah. Later, I end up getting the Crux Turbinus, I think it's what it's called, the new rocket launcher that gets slide shot surrounded. I did end up getting that roll, so I'll probably give that a try later. But again, not really quite the fan of Assassin's Cowl when it comes to high-end content. Not running an exotic primary, or getting too many ability kills in that case, really limits the amount of heavy ammo that generates for your team, unless you're running dedicated Cenotaph Aeons. But if there's going to be, hypothetically, a scenario where the team is super split up, then that type of an option is going to be as effective. So it is generally really good to use exotic primaries in this game. You know, the three that come to mind almost always are Trinity Ghoul, Sunshot, and Graviton Lance. If Trinity Ghoul isn't one-shotting things, then it's kind of useless, and yeah, I would prefer to like use Risk Runner or something. But even just like Striga is fantastic at generating heavy just due to the abundance of kills that you get. Again, going into this, you'll see that I make sure my restoration is sourced from a grenade before the encounter starts. That's pretty crucial because we're going to be picking up a lot of fire sprites the last minute to stay alive in this. Whenever we can't kill Scions, and it's sometimes difficult because Sunshot can be too effective sometimes, but you want to sometimes leave a Scion alive so it can duplicate the other Scions. That really is your primary source of getting your buffs extended. The eyes go away, you know, the wraiths are immune, and the knights have a ton of health. So you want to leave a Scion up and wait for your restoration to go low, and then maybe pick up a fire sprite to go back to 6, or you know, just kill all the Scions when you're only low on the buff. Similarly, I like to wait until the pylons are both fully charged before meleeing my wraith. It might seem a little low on the timer, but otherwise you end up doing a dance with the wraith around a pylon, trying to not get meleeed. And that's not the right way to do it, because you end up getting, you know, damage from this melee, or you end up in a scenario where it's pass back, forth, and then the game just doesn't register your melee like you're playing PvP or something, and then you just die. So finish both of them, get your timer low, like 5 seconds or 4 seconds, or if you finish both of them early and you're still at like 7 seconds, that's okay. Patch it to them and then run around. The primary thing that's going to kill you, other than just forgetting about the buff, is definitely the wizards. They dish out an absolute ton of damage with their solar attack, and it's very easy to get blindsided by them. If you watch them do it, it's easy to dodge it, but say you're focused on a Scion and you turn around and you see that solar attack coming at you, you're just going to die. So if you are going to run surges, you'll notice that I'm actually running reserves for this entire thing, just to keep my ammo high at all times. But you can definitely run reserves if you're generating enough heavy. You're only going to really be using 6 shots anyways, so you'll have all that heavy on the ground to just go pick up afterwards. And maybe you can have a loadout that has reserves on it, and then during damage phase you switch to a loadout that has Void Surge and Solar Surge for sure. Solar for those wizards and Void for the boss. Again, the best way to avoid the boss killing you is to just find some type of object and stick in between it. Gold Gun, while it's activating, you're quite vulnerable, so I do recommend trying to play safe and just finding something to hide behind. And when in doubt, if you think you can squeeze an extra rocket in there, just do it. Usually there's a ton of heavy on the ground, so it's worth trying to shoot the extra rocket. And don't forget to switch your loadouts. Yeah, so here you can see I'm taking the wizards out from afar. Either do that, or just like the Minotaurs, go in close and shoot them with your fusion rifle to just get them out of the way. And you really only want to spawn kill 1 or 2 groups of Scions. Trying to get your gold gun back up. And then you kind of want to, you know, start the damage phase. If you go too long before starting the damage phase, there won't be any Scions alive when the knights are up. And that just isn't a for sure way to die a very sad death if you're trying to get a pylon while there's no Scions to keep you alive. So here you can see I'm actually running into that issue on this first one. Nothing's alive, just me and the knight, and you can barely find the wraith. Sometimes the wraiths take their sweet time running around the map to get to you. They can't pathfind that well. I actually sometimes, prefer to be near where the wraith spawns, which is generally, for solo, it's in the open, for lack of better words. So usually there's one knight that is in a better position. Gonna die here. Look for that restoration. There's always one knight that is in like the closed position, under a roof or something, and then there's one knight that's way out in the open. In trio, they'll spawn kind of evenly, but in solo, they usually spawn on the outside. So you can decide which ones you know, the right choice for you. Do you want to know where the Wraith is at all times and have maybe a little bit less cover? Or do you want to have a little bit more cover, but then maybe the Wraith gets stuck behind some rock and you have 3 seconds to go find them? Again, the pylon itself is actually big enough to block damage from the boss, so it's not as bad as you think. And also, again, I totally forgot to switch loadouts. Don't do that. If you don't want to stick to one exotic, this platform for hunters is a fantastic place to pull out Lucky Pants. It doesn't really matter if it's the worst Lucky Pants roll you got, as long as you have 100 Resil and a Malfeasance, you can do phenomenal damage here. I would switch to Warden's Law when running this encounter, you know, not really caring about what exotic I'm using. I do want to kind of stick it true to the title and say it's Celestial the whole time. But yeah, absolutely, do recommend switching to Lucky Pants here. There's no reason not to. Otherwise, you're just going to be sitting here with like a fusion rifle or sniper doing minimal damage against this boss. So, alternatively, if you have like a shoot-to-loot weapon, you can run that and look out the side of the map and just shoot in a heavy ammo. I'm not really going to discuss the cheese, but you kind of get the idea just by looking at that. So, yep. Going into the final one, this boss should only really be like a 2-phase, in a sense that you're going to cycle back to the start twice. And if it's more than that, then you gotta really just focus on your rotations, getting damage out there correctly. Make sure you're throwing your knives to get the weekend, and make sure you're hitting your celestial headshots. Nothing wrong with getting it done though, even if it takes you 6 phases. It's just more room for error the longer a fight takes, right? Sometimes you practice the fast route, not because you're trying to be the speedrun world record holder, which will never happen as long as Strength Titan exists. Those are absolutely busted right now. You're just trying to get the finish on a class that you like playing, so I'll play it safe and get it done. Focus on the wizards. They should be all dead in this case, and make sure to melee the wraiths when you're finished so that you can run around. You can generally avoid them just by jumping in the air as well and staying kind of on high ground. They can't hit you anywhere high up. And while you're waiting patiently, you can either get a third one, or third pylon. I don't recommend that because you can put yourself out into too much danger just by adding, or just by wanting to add an extra, I think it's 3 seconds to your damage phase. I don't think for solo content that's fair. The majority of your damage is going to be in some, 5-shot burst of Apex with a gold gun. And so extending an extra 3 seconds just to get potentially another 2 shots isn't quite as valuable, I think, as it is risky. Just get the 2 that are easy. Make sure that your buff is gone. If you have 7 seconds laying around, sure, just get a free 1. But I generally don't recommend it. Other tips, I know we've been running Sunshot the whole time. One thing that's really nice about Sunshot here is that if you just shoot the center eye, looking at the boss, then the 2 around it will just blow up immediately. It's very free. You don't have to worry about shooting all of them. Similarly, if you shoot one of the ones on the bottom or the top, it'll always leave one of them alive on the opposite. And so that's really beneficial for, say, you want to have the 5 eyes popped, so you can on the last one you can get your radiant or restoration timer maxed out before going to spawn the knights. So here's the focus was to get some type of restoration up, and ultimately that led to this not being a good enough damage cycle to push the boss into final, which was a big shame because I actually thought that rocket hit and we went to final. So unfortunate, but played safe, not sorry. In this case, unintentionally did too little damage, but did survive that onslaught, so we can get to go to another floor. I would rate that the first floor is probably one of the more difficult floors, if not the most difficult floor, purely because the cover's not in the best spots, and where the wizards spawn, generally they start moving immediately and they move kind of like in a flank position where they go left and right. And that's not the best, because that's how they get behind you and they do their attack and one-shot you. So keep an eye on the wizards, especially on the first floor. The second floor is arguably the easiest one. There's too much cover, and there's too much cover, so very easy to just sit behind something and slowly peck away at either the boss, its scions, or the knights. And oh, look at all this ammo! Just shoot buckets for days. In that case, I tried to get a second one, but there's no real point in trying to get a second pylon. The third structure, or the third platform, it's difficult to describe where the safest place is, because it's obviously at the back of the platform or towards like where you come up, but unfortunately there's no good way to keep that back platform from spawning a ton of taken blights over time. Because they all spawn behind you while you're up doing the race and whatnot. Going into final, the biggest suggestion is to just sit behind that right pillar. I got a little aggressive here in trying to just finish it off. And again, you can switch to Lucky Pants if you're just out of ammo. But Gold Gun will do a big chunk, so if you need to, you can just sit there and wait very patiently for your super to come all the way back up. So yeah, there's my guide on how to do this solo flawlessly as a Nighthawk Hunter. You can see our damage, beautiful 13.6. Very bad precision ratio because the Sunshot goes boom. The only good loot out of this entire dungeon is a world drop. But overall, I do really enjoy it, and I think this is great practice for a day run. So go at it and, you know, have a lot of fun with it. Thank you very much for watching. Oh, and right before I go, if you could, subscribe and like. I actually put a little bit of effort into this. This wasn't my first attempt, obviously. I uploaded that earlier, but I don't think this will be my last either. I really enjoy this dungeon a lot. I'm going to try to get a video where I can two-phase the bosses, so maybe that will be uploaded in the future. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.